Welcome to the SecureGive webinar. My name is Sam Baker and I'm here with Drew Landrum. And today we are going to talk about how technology and culture shape church giving. So to kick us off, we're going to walk you through a full timeline of the last 25 years in church giving, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we're so excited to be here with you today. We're actually, SecureGive is celebrating 20 years of serving churches this year, and we took this opportunity to really take a look at where we've been, what we've done, how we've been able to serve churches, and also used this last year to really take a look at where things are going. So over the last 2 decades, we've been able to observe some of the most interesting trends when it comes to church giving. And one of the things that we have found is that over the next 10 years, the speed to which this will evolve is far faster than anything that's happened to date. So like Sam said, one of the things that we're going to do just to kind of start off is just take a look at where church giving has been, where it's come, and where it's going through this timeline. One of the things I thought it would be interesting to do is who all remembers some of these things here, right? Passing the plate. Some of you honestly may still do some of these things. You've got your buckets, but really and truly in 2000 is when traditional cash and checks were almost the exclusive methods of giving. That seems like so long ago, but it really wasn't. And in 2000, that was really how churchgoers and givers interacted financially with their churches. From there in 2004, you had the first on-site method to receive gifts. You were able to actually make, with a card, with items like that, you're actually able to make gifts to the church beginning in 2008. In 2008, online giving gained prominence. So in online giving entered the arena, it changed the game. Much like in 2004, really when SecureGive introduced the first giving kiosk,
That's right.
2008 had the same evolution. It changed how churches interacted with giving altogether. However, it had not come to a place yet where that was the predominant way of giving. If you go to July of 2008, that is when the Apple Store launched the App Store. Apple launched their App Store. So when that happened, we saw an opportunity at SecureGive. We thought to ourselves, okay, if the App Store is now where people are going to interact with products and other businesses, how can SecureGive get in that? So in 2011, the first giving app was introduced in the App Store, and that was by way of SecureGive. In 2014, here comes Text to Give. So text giving was super interesting because it was a method in which everybody was connecting, but nobody had really thought about how do I leverage that in church yet. Now, of course, when giving was overlapped with text giving, or the ability to text, it instantly changed how quickly people are able to give one-time gifts. So the speed to which text giving introduced opportunity was the big kicker there. 2015, mobile web usage climbed, bringing an emphasis to mobile-first design. So we look at everything we've ever done at the mobile app, and we've looked at it and thought, okay, how does this become easy for people to use? It was in 2015 that mindset really started to change, and people, when they were designing applications like SecureGive and these types of apps, how do you give it mobile web emphasis? This day and age, your website better work well at the mobile app level. From there, we had 2020, fast forward to there. COVID drove a huge shift heading towards how people gave in church. Up to that point, you had a multi-platform approach, but it was 50-50 in electronic giving, cash versus check. So 50% online, 50% cash and check. And soon as COVID happened, we were amazed at how quickly that shift changed. Now, most all churches in America are at about that 70-30%. So 70% of it coming in online and 30% traditional methods. 2022, that is when we saw a real surge in tech. In 2022 is when crypto entered the church giving space. Now, we also call that non-cash asset. So there's other entities, stocks and things like that. But the ability to give a cryptocurrency through the church really took us not only by surprise, but it also presented a massive opportunity for us to help to continue to serve churches. So in 2022, introducing cryptocurrency, and the adoption rose significantly that year.
And so, all that is great, and I appreciate that, Drew. And so we're going to take all that, what we've learned over the last, 2 decades, especially what we have seen at SecureGive, and we're going to show you a little bit of what we've learned and how we can use what we've learned and kind of predict the future and really just get you prepared for what is coming. And so, as I walk through this, if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A. We're going to do our best to answer them along the way, and then at the end of this, we can answer all of them. But and so as we dive into what we learned, first off, financial stability. That's such a huge thing with that just this technology provided. Okay, so with these online giving tools, we are now have such a great administrative dashboard. And so your admin team can see everything happening within your SecureGive account. So you're seeing who is setting up a recurring gift and how much you can expect next week, next month. And that way you can plan your budget accordingly. You are also able to set up giver profiles. And so we see this so often in churches where they're able to segment different givers, and whether they are a first-time giver, whether they've set up a recurring gift, whether they, we use a lot of different terms. Maybe it's kingdom builders or impact givers, those type of terms. But it allows us to pretty much segment your givers into different buckets, so to speak. We also can have a lot more just consistency. So I mentioned the ability to set up recurring gifts is obviously huge within your online giving portal. Well, also, like I mentioned, through your administrative dashboard, you're able to see those gifts coming through and prepare that for your next month and be able to budget for those things. And then you're also able to expect larger gifts with all these different additions, right? And so whether I know, looking back at the last 20 years of SecureGive, we've seen some of our largest gifts come through the giving kiosk. That way, it just allows the donor to walk up to a machine, type in however much they want to donate, and swipe their card. And we've seen some of the largest gifts come through our system through that way. We also see that, through your ACH giving and those type of things. And so it just allows for larger gifts. And I will say, Drew mentioned this earlier, but the addition of crypto giving, we have seen some of the largest church gifts through cryptocurrencies in the last few years that trump all the other gifts. And so it's just very fascinating. And so if you're a church that doesn't utilize crypto gifts, know that there are some large gifts there waiting for you. And then continuing through that, also just a huge thing, accessibility. I mean, we want to make this as easy for the donor as possible. And so I know Drew mentioned, making sure that you are mobile friendly, or having a kiosk set up in your lobby, or be able to automate your giving through online giving and through recurring gifts. And so just that accessibility and just making it easy for your donors is so key as we move forward, and that's kind of what we've learned. So knowing that and all that we've learned, let's take a look at kind of the future of church giving and what you need to understand over the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's great. And so Sam, when he was talking about large gifts and accessibility and those kinds of things, the reality is that the next decade of church giving is going to be so dependent upon how well you structure your technologies for all of those things that we talked about that we learned to be able to really impact your church significantly. So givers are less committed to institutions and more driven by cause. I love this statement because it is, not only is it accurate, it is point blank. We have done a lot of studies focusing on the next generation coming up into the church. And the young people in your church love the church. They love the building. They love the worship space. They love all of the things about your church. But they've been raised in a generation that has been trained to be critical first. And so whether it is conscious or subconscious, they want to know what the money is doing. All right? So when you're receiving an offering or you're casting vision, you have to be sure that you're attaching all of their generosity to impact.
Absolutely. I know we see that nonprofit organizations do a very good job at this.
Yes.
Of just making sure that their cause is very clear to their audience. And so I certainly agree with you in the fact that churches need to be very deliberate and intentional when talking about all the ministry and the impact that they are making, that you are making in your community.
Absolutely. And it can be as simple as, storytelling. Using a family in the church. We have churches that, over summer cast a lot of visions about missions work, right? But taking the time to spell out for the people of your church what impact you're making is going to become increasingly more important as the next generation really starts to assume the responsibility of financially supporting your church. Electronic non-cash giving will be the largest total bucket of all giving. So what we're saying there is over the next 10 years, electronic non-cash gifts are predicted to surpass cash, okay? And that has everything to do with the largest wealth transfer ever known to humankind starting to take place to the baby boomers. And from there, you've got to understand that every college, every nonprofit, all of these organizations they're very far ahead in this journey. They are making plans for this. So one of the things that we're trying to help churches gain understanding of is how they can be prepared for when this shift starts to happen. So things like stocks, things like estate planning, all of those non-cash components, they are going to exceed cash in church over the next 10 years. Giver retention is top priority. So we live in a world now where you can attend church from anywhere. You can attend a church that's on the other side of the country. While we want people to find a church home and those kind of things, we recognize we have to present ways for everyone to get to participate. One of the challenges with that is that it becomes increasingly more difficult to connect with people. Churches are growing in complexity. Organizations are spreading further and further out. Many of you are multi-sites. And so there's just complexities that are happening in the church now that it's really, really important to focus on that retention element. And really all that means is communicating and staying in touch. I see churches segment things like email. So they've got emails that go out to, first-time givers, recurring givers, gifts, givers that they consider to be, higher gift givers, impact givers. I see churches that, every week they're creating video content that's only going to a very segmented part of their giving community. It's just getting creative, keeping people in the loop, and really focusing on that retention component.
And I would say a lot of that kind of boils down to making sure that you are just thankful for those that are giving to your church.
Absolutely.
And so just letting them know that they are making an impact And then kind of going back to that first bullet point on this slide of, making sure that they are very clear about what your church is doing in the community, what you are the impact that you are making. And so, but certainly just make sure that those that are giving to your church feel thanked. And then convenience will trump opportunity. That's another huge thing. I know I mentioned this earlier, but making these type of things accessible for your givers. Drew mentioned of how universities and nonprofits are doing a great job of just positioning themselves for this large wealth transfer. The church needs to be doing the same thing of not only having it available, but making sure that it is easy for when those gifts come about, that it is easy for your donors to make that contribution to your church.
Yeah. And, we are very, very close to where the majority of people 30 and under are moving into a place where they're no longer going to carry a wallet. I tell people all the time, they're going to eventually figure out this driver's license thing. And as soon as they can account for that in an app form, then young people are not going to be carrying their wallets anymore. Right. So one of the things you've got to think about is, how can I make sure that all of my opportunities for people to give to this church are convenient, they're clear, they're fast, and they're high functioning? We've put a lot of time and effort here. It's what we're calling a digital wallet. So everything that interacts with our products, you're able to tap, you're able to, Face ID. I mean, just all of those different.
Be able to use your, Apple Pay and Google Pay and
Absolutely.
Samsung Pay, all those things as well.
And so, and so it's just about making things convenient, because unfortunately, we can't just depend on the opportunity any longer. We've really, really got to drive home that convenience component.
And the last thing, go back one more quick, is security. That is more important than ever. I know as just tech has continued to ramp up, also that means security threats on the other side are ramping up. I know that is a huge priority for SecureGive. Obviously, we built the name Secure in our name for a reason. And so know that you need to be able to trust your giving provider, and ensure that they are protecting your money that is coming through, because security, like I mentioned, is just such an important thing moving into the future of your church giving.
Yeah, and I would even tell you to consider, having those conversations with people that are providing these services to you, right? So it's worth taking the time to ask any vendor, what are you doing to make sure that our contributions and our gifts are safe and secure? And even it's worth finding out what's happening to the data, right? There's organizations and businesses out there that are in, where they're selling off data and they're doing things like that. You really want to make sure that you have a full understanding of the measures that any vendor for any service at your church is taking to make sure that that environment is secure. It's going to be very, very critical, certainly over the next 10 years.
And so as we wrap up, I know that we do have a few questions here. And so I'm going to pull these up, Drew. So the first one I'm seeing is, what are the most common things you see churches overlook when it comes to their giving strategy?
Yeah, what are the most common things we see churches overlook when it comes to their giving strategy?
I would say, two things that we mentioned just a moment ago, but making sure that people know where their dollars are going. Mm-hmm. So being very clear of what impact you are making in the community. And then as well as just, again, thanking their donors, being very intentional with their donor retention strategy. Because you don't want, if folks are leaning in and contributing to your church, that means they probably want to give more. and they want to give the next Sunday and the following Sunday. And so just be intentional about reaching out, tell them what, how they're making an impact, but also just be thankful for them.
Yeah, and I think the third thing that I would add to that is frequency. So, I've worked with churches before that, they're a little timid on how often they welcome opportunities to give to their church. And one of the things I always tell them is well, it's biblical. It's a biblical practice, and it's your responsibility to always position those opportunities. So whether it's a Sunday recap email, or it's a midweek Wednesday update from the church, or it's on stage on the platform, don't be timid with providing the opportunity for people to be generous. I think that it's so simple, but it's really overlooked, is just frequency of that invitation to give to your church.
Absolutely, Drew. I have another question here. It says, you mentioned crypto. So is that still relevant after it dropped off last year? Interesting.
I don't know what they're talking about.
I will say, interesting enough, for starters, I'll give you two answers. We've seen a big spike actually in crypto overall, this year. Just as far as I know, Bitcoin and all those things are going up. But still last year, when it was a down year for crypto, quote unquote, we still saw very large gifts coming through SecureGive via cryptocurrency. And so, yes, the market last year dropped a little bit, but still, folks have assets within their cryptocurrency that they still want to contribute to your church. And then from this year, as I mentioned, crypto has shot up over the last few weeks and months. And so as those continue to rise, you'll see more and more gifts coming through. One huge thing that we've seen, and kind of a reason behind why crypto gifts can be on average larger than a cash gift, is because you have that capital gains tax. And so if somebody bought in last year while it was at a low, and now they're seeing at an all-time high, well, now they're going to want to sell or whatever. That I'm not a crypto expert by any means, but they're going to want to contribute some of those assets, some of those cryptos to your church, and kind of avoid some of those taxes there. So
yeah, and just one more thing to add to that. I tell my churches all the time who are doing homework on crypto. Crypto's still finding its footing, right? It is still, globally, it's still finding its footing. And is it here to stay 100%? There are federal things that are starting to take place, where you're going to see crypto become more and more legitimized. And once it reaches a place where it's recognized by, really culture at large as a viable form of currency, you're going to want to be prepared for it, because, it's going to be everywhere. I think I was on a trip not long ago, and I saw an Uber you can pay with crypto. I mean, it's becoming more and more commonplace.
Certainly. And so, yeah, absolutely. Just be prepared for when that comes. But, folks want to give that today as well. I have another question here. So it says, what can my church do to connect with potential givers that predominantly spend money using Apple Pay?
Okay, yeah, I love that question, because it's an opportunity to look at my own life. I was telling somebody the other day that I had my first full day where I never pulled out my wallet. Like the whole day, anything I bought, food, gas, I used my phone and Apple Pay.
And it is so easy.
And I would say that the biggest thing to communicate really and truly is that it's available. Because much like crypto, people that use Apple Pay, all they need to know is that they can.
Right.
And so, it doesn't require a lot of explanation. You don't necessarily need to unpack it, but it can be as simple as, when you're talking about your ways to give, if it's on a screen or if it's on a video, just make sure that icon is there, or just simply say the words out loud, Apple Pay. And people are already fully aware on how to use that, and they just need to know that it's a possibility.
Right. I think that goes to of, a lot of folks that are going to give these things, whether it's Apple Pay, whether it's crypto, I feel like a lot of churches are hesitant because they don't understand the technology behind cryptocurrency or what all it means. The good thing is the folks that are going to give it, they already understand it all.
Yeah.
And for you, you're just receiving cash. And so for you, it's super easy. Going on to our next question. I have two more as they're still coming in. Thinking about your point on making giving most convenient, it says, since our church has its own app, but we want to use SecureGive as our online giving platform, is there a way to merge it into our app instead of having members or givers have to download yet another separate app? And I'd say, first off, you're preaching to the choir. Nobody wants to download another app, and all that. And so for starters, that is super easy for us to do. For instance, we can do a couple things. First off, SecureGive, we have the ability to do a custom church app for you. And so where we can bring all the elements of your current church app, or if you don't have one, we can help build one up for you. But then you can implement your giving directly within that app. It's not going to kick you out to Safari or anything like that, but you'll have that giving embedded directly within your SecureGive church app. And then if you use somebody else for your app, or if you built it yourself, you can absolutely still plug that URL, that SecureGive link directly into your already existing app.
Yeah.
And then continuing on that, it says, can you let us know anything new that SecureGive is working on that may make it easier for donors to give? Anything, we mentioned tap to pay. I think that's a huge thing. With our giving kiosk, I'd say tap to pay is we just released that in Q4 of last year. And the reception that we've gotten has already been incredible. I mean, it just really makes a kiosk donation so quick. And so that's one thing.
I would say too, we covered it in the presentation, is our effort to really equip our products to receive non-cash asset. Many of you on this webinar today are familiar with this. You kind of understand it. If you don't, I'll be glad to connect with you and talk more about it. But we're doing everything we need to do at a product level to make sure that we want every church around the world to be ready to receive gifts through this wealth transfer. So we're putting a lot of time and effort into that as well.
Absolutely. Well, that's all I have for questions. And so I appreciate everybody for attending. If you want some more information about SecureGive, please reach out to us. You can send us an email at grow@securegive.com. Again, that's grow, GROW, @securegive.com. Or you can always give us a phone call, but check out our website, securegive.com. Is there anything else that...
No, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. We hope that you learned something, or maybe even just had something confirmed to you that you've been kicking around. So we're always grateful to connect, and we look forward to the next time we get to see you.